We have one more session here in this track room, and it's a panel to take us to the break. So I would like to invite to the stage for the last session of the day a panel to talk about to infinity and beyond, where will technology take us next? Now, if you'd seen in the schedule that this was going to be hosted by Riley Anderson, I'm afraid she's unable to be with us, so I will be hosting this panel. So we're sorry that we won't be able to see Riley, but I will be very pleased to have on stage with me Joanna from Snap Finger Click, Stanislaw from Fuero Games, Alex from Redlight Finance, and Benjamin from Solid Bash. So come to the stage, please, and take a seat. And everyone here, let's give them a round of applause for the last panel of the morning. Now, I'm going to grab the other mic. There is a spare mic here. And then I'll stay at the podium so that there should be enough mics. So do we have 4 mics for 4 people? How's that? Perfect, and I'll use this one, and then they're away. So look, thank you very much. Hello, and welcome to the final panel of the morning session here on the Tech Trendsetters stage. We are going to be talking about where technology will take us next. Now, it's been a really interesting morning. People have covered AI and Web3 a little bit. I'm sure we'll come back to some of that. Got a few questions to dive in here. What I suggest we'll do to start with then, why don't we just get our panelists to introduce themselves and their background and their own relationship with technology. I'll start right down here then with Joanna, and we'll work our way around. Yeah, let's tell everyone about yourself.
Hi, does this work? Yeah. Hi everyone, so I'm Jo, I'm the design director at Snap Finger Click. I've been in the industry for about 15 years now, and mostly I've worked on multiplayer party games, done a bit of mobile, but yeah, currently we make games that you can play on Twitch, so you can stream them on Twitch, type in the chat and play along, and that's what I'm currently doing.
Amazing, thank you.
Stanislaw Fiedor, I'm the founder of Fuero Games, which I founded like 10 years ago. We develop both mobile and PC games. One of our first was the Witcher Battle Arena cooperation with CD Projekt Red, and now we are also launching our own games, so I invite you to download them and play.
Right, thank you. Ben.
Hi, I'm Troy. Don't let the name tag
your badge is misleading.
It is misleading, this badge. So my real name's Troy. I'm head of technology for Solid Bash. Not going to do much time introducing myself. You came here to be inspired about the future of tech, and I hope you're prepared to be amazed.
Great, thank you.
My name's Alex. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Redlight Finance, and Redlight Finance is all about bridging the gap between decentralization and real-world utility, especially in the GameFi space.
That's brilliant, thank you. Range of experiences, lots to talk about. I'm going to start at that end again, and we'll come back round. Let's just take the temperature then a little bit. What are the important game technologies that we should be letting people know about and talking about amongst ourselves?
There are so many.
There's so many. Let's pick a couple each.
I can pick a couple. I mean, where do you choose from first, right? VR is
sure.
Slowly growing. I talked about it in the other panel. It's very slow. Web3 technology is rapidly growing, I would say, in such a small amount of time that crypto has been alive. That space alone, I mean, 1 year feels like a century. So especially with ownership, digital ownership with personalization items, and integrating that type of technology to allow users to have a further experience of their game and where they can go through on the next level. And then just obviously from a hardware standpoint, there's so many technologies that are advancing, whether it comes microprocessors, nanoprocessors, GPUs and stuff like that as well.
Amazing, yeah. Off to a great start. Troy.
Listen, I was also going to say VR.
Yeah, right.
You beat me to it.
Yeah.
No, like consumer prices are going to drop in that domain. We're going to start seeing a lot more people picking up that platform. More devs are going to start getting into it. We're looking at the same cusp that we saw at the early days of Unity 3D, where it had almost zero market share, but devs were getting on board and creating experiences with it, and then it just shot up out of nowhere. Same thing's going to happen on VR. We're going to start seeing some platform-defining experiences that are really going to drive consumers to that platform, and then more and more devs are going to be there as well, making it more and more content.
Great, interesting. So VR and the cost of VR to the consumer, that's great. Stanislaw.
I'm excited for the generative AI and how it's growing and how it will change, I think, not only our industry, but probably the whole world, because It's amazing what's the development during the last year or year and a half in this area. And we can already see people starting to be using those solutions actually in the game development for speeding up their game development creation. Or even I've read a post where a 13-year-old using ChatGPT created a text-based game. So you can become developers using those tools without having much of the knowledge of the industry at all. So that's going to change a lot what's going to be happening during the next years.
Yeah, absolutely. I knew someone was going to bring up AI. It's been a topic that's, funny enough, a year ago, no one was talking about, although people were working in that space, but there wasn't much. But here this morning, I've heard it in almost every talk, someone's referred to what AI is going to do for their industry. But Joe, yeah, what do you want to bring up?
I want to talk about cloud gaming,
Sure,
I think, because for me, that's going to be a massive shift. I think that gaming is going to go on a very similar journey for console PC-based type games that mobile did. So TV is going to become like mobile phones to people. They're going to be so much more than just a television. We're going to be able to bring games into everybody's homes to reach audiences that we couldn't before. And I think it's also going to change the way we make games because we're not going to be held back by hardware anymore. We're always going to be at the forefront of what's technically possible, and that's really going to push what we can do in gaming.
Yeah, that's interesting. Cloud gaming is an absolutely an interesting one. I think we've kind of hit all the big topics there. We've covered the little bingo card of like Web3 and VR and metaverse and kind of AI and cloud gaming. All of these technologies, I think we're all agreed are super interesting. But for me as a consumer, I'm not a game developer or a publisher. I'm a gamer. How are these going to affect the games I play? You mentioned cost is an interesting thing as well. Let's start here again. So, Joe, what is my experience as a gamer going to be affected by these technologies?
I think with cloud gaming, that's the one I'm kind of championing at the moment. As a consumer, I think the obvious thing is that a lot more people are going to become gamers, whether they associate themselves with that as a label or not. You know, the gamer label itself is kind of interesting because people don't tend to put a label on loving movies or loving books so much. You know, you can get a movie buff, a bookworm or whatever, but typically it's just an entertainment form that most people engage with.
Right, it's like asking the question, have you heard of music?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Exactly.
And now everyone's kind of...
My hobby is listening to music. You know, it's going to become something that's very accessible and mainstream to people. You know, I've worked with Stadia, and obviously Stadia hasn't worked out, but I told a lot of people about Stadia who I knew weren't gamers, and for them it blew their minds, the fact that they could just access console quality games in their browser, not having to shell out hundreds of pounds for a machine that can play it. That was a real game changer for people, that they can actually access this. And, you know, gaming is so popular with people's kids. You know, lots of people my age who have kids talk to me and say, oh, my kids love games, I don't know anything about it. It's going to become this family entertainment. And I think from a consumer's point of view, it's just introducing it to a whole new audience that are just waiting out there that we haven't reached yet. And for me, that's really exciting, especially the kind of games that I make, which have always been traditionally for people who wouldn't necessarily call them gamers. I'm really excited about the prospect of this waiting audience out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Stanislaw, we mentioned, you brought up the topic of AI, but either with that or any of the topics, the technologies we've discussed, what's going to be the immediate impact on...
Sure. So for your experience, or basically the player's experience, think about, as a player, what would you like to have if you like a game, what would you like to think of? Like, you would like to play this game like for forever, right? Because you love this experience, you get into this world, and then you don't want to play like 4 or 5, 10 hours or 40. You want to play like almost for forever. So think now about AI, what it could be generating new levels, new enemies, new stories, new chapters, and so on its own. So that's going to be amazing. On one end, think about it that for the developers, it will be easier to create more content for you as a player because the cost for them will drop down. Right. That's one thing. Now, the other part is there can be games that can be suited just for you. Let's say you wake up and today I'm in a mood, I want to play like, I don't know, a tennis game in the space where I fight zombie aliens, right? You write it down and in 30 seconds, your game is starting. And that's actually the game that you wanted to play. And that's, of course, it's not tomorrow, but we are talking here about the future. And that can be actually the future, that maybe there will be no game developers anymore, right?
Don't panic.
That might be crazy, but we'll see, because there might be some crazy AI that's going to be actually developing the games, the virtual worlds, the experiences for you on demand, right? In the style or visuals or the stories that you want to play. So it's mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of always mindful of that with on Star Trek when they go in the holodeck and they go, computer, I want to be Sherlock Holmes or whatever, and it just happened. Actually, I mean, I want to take the same question to you, but does anyone else want to chip in on any of these topics? We've mentioned cloud gaming or AI. Do you folks have a take on either of those topics?
I mean, a little bit. I agree with you on that front. AI is going to play a major part inside of games, generating content as players play, giving them new kinds of challenges that they weren't going to expect, right? We've all played against those dumb AIs. They don't adapt. And as soon as you figure out how to break the pattern, you've got the game conquered. Where's the challenge? There's no more fun factor, right? The generative AI is going to keep fun factor in those long-lasting games even longer. So yeah, it's going to be a real game changer for future experiences.
That's good. We'll come back to talk about the effect of AI on development in a second, but then Troy, let's stay with you. What do you take from VR as my experience as a gamer? You mentioned price, which is a big thing. Is there anything else about the technology we've discussed which the gamer will immediately get an advantage from?
So I've been tracking VR since the 90s.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Born motor man.
Yeah, right. All right, so it was shit in the 90s, let's be honest. Okay. I have seen the people falling out of chairs, out of things, then projectile vomiting across the floor. I have also done that, so it is not a fun experience. Nor do you want any sort of PR around that when you're trying to do a consumer product.
No, there are very few technologies that actually make your gamers sick if you get it wrong.
Exactly, and VR would be one of those kinds of platforms, and that was a real struggle back in the day, right? It was very price prohibitive. Simulation sickness was a real issue. There has been an amazing amount of R&D being done out of the military, out of other private industries, and they're starting to find the ways of keeping that simulation sickness down. So like gamers can spend more than an hour in there without getting physically sick. We've also found out ways to make movement work without making people physically sick. We're now learning more and more about what those capabilities and what those technical constraints are and what the opportunities are. And now that the industry has figured that out, that's why I'm saying like we're gonna start seeing those platform defining experiences that don't make people sick, that they're able to experience for a long period of time, because as you said, people want a game. And that's one of the other prohibitives like natures about VR, which are starting to disappear from that industry.
Interesting. And again, I will bring the conversation around to that, but just sticking with that for a moment, because that's interesting there. The metaverse is another word that I hear all the time this year, which maybe I didn't hear before, and that's maybe got VR once again into the public consciousness through news programs talking about what Zuckerberg's been saying and so on. I mean, do we think the metaverse is going to change gaming?
We will see. That's the ultimate answer. But I'm sure that's going to be growing probably in the next years. But that's going to be combined with like the first technology getting in. Like think about, we are still waiting for the iPhone of VR, let's say, right? Okay. So we really, so it's going to be a super easy way to onboard for the people to get in and experience it. That will be also reasonably priced, so it will be out there to the people, right? So that's first thing. I think the AI can also help with driving the costs of the development of the stuff as well, because then you don't need to develop create every tree, every element and object and so on, and animation, etc., because things of that will be automatically generated. So that's one part of that. What I would add additionally outside of VR is also AR, or there's like mixed reality, right? Because I think before we get deep, that's my vision, but before we get deep into the VR, maybe AR or the mixed reality will play a bigger role, because I don't know, there are some rumors about Apple Glass and so on, etc. So maybe there will be this way where we can experience the way where we are and the reality we are here, but have some additional features that will allow us to easily navigate through it, right? So there will be definitely changes coming, and so that's like being in the industry. It's being a little bit afraid, because that's what happens, right? We have every, let's say, 10 years such a crazy change that basically turns the whole industry up and down. So that's potentially something that will be coming with new goggles, glasses, or whatever it's going to be, where suddenly there's going to be popping up a new crazy big market, etc. And then additionally, I think that with those AI and those worlds, etc., the Web3 will even become more important, because then if you're going to be spending even more time within those games, if you're going to be gaining stuff, you're going to be collecting it, etc., then you will be willing even more to own it, to be able to do something with it, maybe sell, to give away, present, a gift, etc. So that's something that I think that there will be the survival, like the coming back of the Web3 even bigger, when it's going to be having the possibility to be more useful, have the usability actually.
I think that's a really good point. And you mentioned there, all of these technologies converge when we start talking about the potential. So Alex, that's a great segue back to what you're saying. You kicked us off talking about technologies, and obviously Redlight works in the blockchain space and in the Web3 space. Tell us a little bit about that. What's your take on how Web3 is going to come back and be big for the gamers this year?
Sure. So Web3 is very interesting because currently at its very current state, Web3 is difficult because from the traditional user experience, they have to learn this entire new system.
All the barriers to entry there are.
Yeah, gas, the education on maintaining a certain amount of a token to pay for a transaction in order to interact with the game, so that way you can maybe possibly sell something. It doesn't make sense for that dude that's watching an advertisement on YouTube for a game, right? They just want to play the game. That's where what we're trying to change is we're trying to make that user experience seamless. So they can just click download on the game and not necessarily have to interact with an entire ecosystem of cryptography and gas and all of that stuff, but still maintain that user ownership of the NFTs that they have, whether that be skins, whether that be different types of in-game abilities or anything like that. And then you already technically see this, just not on a Web3 level. If you look at Steam, the biggest platform for PC games, they're an NFT marketplace with extra steps. They are. If you play CSGO, they have skins for all of their guns and all of that stuff. Technically speaking, that could be integrated into a blockchain within 10 minutes, realistically. But they don't want to do that because of that super barrier and knowledge entry to the Web3 space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so is your sort of suggestion and solution for that like the wallet, it just happens in the background. A person doesn't have to jump through all those things about setting up their hash key or whatever else.
Yeah, so through Redlight, for example, we have what's called RNS, which is Redlight Naming Service, which translates your username and replaces your wallet ID with that username.
Okay, fine, yeah.
So as if you were just signing up for a game normally, you'd have your display name or your username, that would act as your wallet address. So if you wanted to buy an NFT off me or me send something to you, it would be as me as just typing in your username. Simple as that. And then integrating that with zero gas is very essential because blockchains like Ethereum, for example, or Polygon, they're starting to get in through this GameFi space, but they still have that issue of, hey, we have to pay $5 in order to do a transaction with this game, which, I mean, try to explain that to somebody who's like a 13-year-old who's just trying to play a nice, fun game on their mobile phone. It's kind of hard.
That's interesting. I'd like to, before we move on to another topic while we've got a little time, get anyone else's take on the Web3 space, because it does have, cause some kind of high, lots of strong opinions from people, doesn't it? Like, there are people who are absolutely committed to it and people who are afraid of the barriers to entry, and then some people who just ideologically don't like it. I mean, have you been playing with NFTs, or are you going to do anything in web gaming from your studio?
Probably not. It's not really something that fits with the type of games that we make. And to be honest with you, it's not a big interest of mine, but it's been interesting to watch unfold. I've gone through a lot of trends, and I can remember, for example, when free-to-play came along, and that was a big shake-up to the industry, and I remember the impact that it had, virtually in such a short space of time. It was like overnight. We went from, I worked for a console developer at the time who went literally from one day to another, we've got to jump on this. And it changed the whole industry. And it's the biggest games that exist today are using the free-to-play model and are doing very well, So my feeling is that I don't think Web3's had quite the same impact. I haven't seen it infiltrate the industry in quite the same way. So I don't know, but it doesn't need to necessarily to stick around and be successful. I think VR is a good example of that. it was a big thing. It was really exciting. Lots of people got very much behind it, and it's got a big following. It's been very successful, but it hasn't dominated the industry, hasn't taken over things. And I suspect that Web3 will be the same. It will have a home and it will have a place, but I don't think it's going to change every game out there,
But it's interesting, the comparison with free-to-play, it does seem to create the same strong emotions in some people who are immediately committed to it and some people who are very, very hesitant. Since we're against the clock, I'd like to sort of shift back to talking about AI. Like we said, it's been a huge topic this morning on stage. As well as the experience for the gamer that we've just discussed and what the potentials are, and quite exciting. It also has the potential to change how we make games as well, and how it's going to change the studios. One of our talks earlier on, an absolutely fascinating one, said they've replaced their entire art staff with AI, and I'm sure that causes some deep consternation. But on the other hand, they were also saying that they still need human writers to work with things. Maybe that isn't everyone's experience. Do anyone want to jump in here and talk about what's going to happen, what the current generation of AI is going to do for the developers and publishers in the room? What's going to do for businesses?
Sure. So last year I started mentoring also some early founders and startups, and one of those teams, they basically during December they were able to create like a game from scratch to release on like Google Alpha within 2 weeks. Where all of the art that they had inside was generated with AI.
Yeah.
So that's pretty crazy, in short. And half of the story, which was also generated with the use of AI. So basically, I think the future will change a lot, right? Because there will be, in terms of artists, it will be tough because, hey, the AI can create something way much quicker than you would be doing it by your hand on your own, etc. Sure, it would be your art, you would put your ideas into that, but the thing is, it still would take you like 1-2 weeks maybe to create like a masterpiece. With the AI, you can have like 4 ideas within 30 seconds, and you can iterate it 10 times, let's say, and then you find something that's basically around the same quality, or maybe even better if you're like a starting artist, etc. Which means that people who will have to get away from their egos, right? Because it's, oh, I'm an artist, etc. It's like the world is changing. So I can use this AI as a tool to help me to show off my ideas, my creativity faster there to the users, to the players, etc. Use it as a tool. Don't see it as like an enemy, right? That's going to take my job away, etc. It's more something that's going to allow me to deliver 10 times more than I would be doing normally. Right.
Another tool for efficiency and kind of automation. Does anyone else want to leap in there? I guess everyone's got hot things. Okay, we'll go. Alex, Troy, and then Joe. Yes, do that.
Yeah. So I think if AI gets developed enough to the sense where it could be to the point where it's replacing artists would be then replaced by storytellers. So you'd have this advanced storyteller that maybe has an artistic background that it's able to describe to the AI exactly what they're looking for. That would probably take them 5 to 10 minutes, and the AI can generate it in 30 seconds. Whereas on an artistic standpoint, that might have taken weeks or hours upon hours of development, creating that content, editing it, perfecting it, whereas an AI could do that in literally seconds. And they would transition to this storytelling mode where they're able to take what their vision is in artistic, write it down, and have an AI generate that. If we can get AI to that point, and we're already seeing examples of this. For example, Midjourney is a fantastic example of taking a sentence and making something fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Troy.
So I was going to say, like most world-class organizations who are doing engineering have been using generative AI for decades. Okay, I've been using it since 2005 to great effect. The last project where we used generative AI, it was for a military command and control system. I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I will tell what the results were. So we created a product for the military that was for like the command and control software. There was an existing product on the market that I think it was, like if I remember the metrics, was about 50 to 60 developers over 4 years to make. 2 developers, 6 months.
Wow. Right.
And ours did all of the command and control options, and theirs only did 25% of them.
Wow.
And it is a massive game changer. And so when we delivered that to them, I remember the commander of the Warfare Center calling me up, super, super excited, because we just delivered them a ×6 force multiplier.
Yeah.
And that is, again, if anyone knows military theory, that's a really big multiplier.
Yeah. That's a great, and you put your finger on it there. To a degree, it's about doing a lot of what we do, just doing it faster. And that it's assistance in programming and all those kind of things. Those options have been there for a while, and that's amazing. Joe, do you have a take on AI and its role in game development?
Yeah, I mean, I think I largely agree with what's been said already. I think it's a tool in your arsenal,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of excitement about ChatGPT and about Midjourney. But I think there are so many tools that have come along in development. We were told by the 90s we'll only have to work 4 hours a day because technology is going to improve our lives so much. But that's just not true. We'll just keep pushing ourselves to do more, and then we'll be building these tools that do stuff that used to be hard. If you look at animation, and everything used to have to be hand-drawn frame by frame, and now the quality of animation is that they've focused on other things that used to be hard, things like hair and stuff like that. We're just going to find other places to put ourselves into to keep improving. I'm not sure if these, ChatGPT and Midjourney are these big game changers necessarily. They're really exciting, so I think they've brought something to the public consciousness very quickly and in a very accessible way. But I think something like Unity was a bigger game changer in terms of speeding up development, making development more accessible for people. That was a huge shift because suddenly everyone can be a game dev, and they really have been.
Right.
You've got those little indies that
Absolutely.
have made breakout hits that would not have been possible before that. So I think anything that can help people develop games, to actually add something to them and get that more accessible is a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to take all our jobs, though. I think it's just the nature of what we do will change.
Right, exactly. And just another tool, and you're right, I think a lot of the generative AI at the moment is getting the headlines because it's a nice novelty to be able to generate a picture and show it on the news or something, but actually, its use as a tool to have on a second screen debugging code for you or something is great, right? We're kind of out of time. I've got a flashing light here, and I know that the people in the audience will want to have lunch. We could probably talk on this. I think we've covered most of the hot topic areas. We could talk a lot further. So what I'm going to suggest is that we see if there's any questions from the audience. Maybe we'll take one or two questions, and if not, we'll break. You guys can go and get your lunch, and we'll take it from there. Do we have any questions from the audience? One at the one there and one there. We'll take these two questions. However, I have all the mics, I think. Oh, there is one. There is one. Thanks. So Samantha will bring you a mic. We've got a question here and then one down here with the Unity t-shirt. So I think there was in that row there. There we go. Okay.
Hi. Sorry, I just wanted to maybe dig in a little bit more about how you guys see AI affecting the industry, because I think we kind of touched on it where a lot of people talk about it's going to ruin the industry, we're not going to have people. It would be really good to get perspective on what everybody's opinion is on that, because I think it really is an opinion type of scenario.
So I think I mentioned earlier, it depends how you personally see that, right? Because you can see it as an enemy, something that you have to fight against because it does your job way much faster, etc., right? But you can think of it as a tool that helps you to do your job twice faster and maybe even better than you did it before. So I think it's an personal aspect, but on the other hand, it's like you can have your own opinion, but the world's gonna change. So at some moment, you're gonna stay alone with that opinion, and well, the only thing that's gonna be there for you is either adapt or die, right? Kind of, I think so.
I guess AI is happening is the thing. How we do it. Does someone else want to take that? Yeah.
So my point on this one would be, it's not going to replace anyone's jobs. It's going to augment your jobs. You're still going to have to learn the fundamentals of your craft. If you're an artist, you have to do the fundamentals. You got to do the pen and paper parts. You've got to build up your craft. And then AI is going to augment you. If you're a programmer, you're going to need to know how to code. You're going to have to understand the engineering involved. You're going to have to understand those architectural patterns and design patterns that we use in gaming. Because as great as AI is, it will lie to you. And this is the term I like to use and tell engineers. Sometimes it's wrong. And if you're not smart enough to know that, you're screwed.
Yeah. It's fun. Sorry, I was experimenting with the ChatGPT, getting it to summarize some popular movies for me, and the description of what Superman was about was completely wrong. And I thought if someone was using this to someone, it had to think like apparently I won't even go. He killed someone over Niagara Falls. I think it was conflating a lot of different stories. But yeah, you have to know. You have to see the movie for yourself to know what the thing is. Does anyone else want to leap in there?
Yeah, I think, as everyone else has said, it's not going to replace your job. And I think as it stands right now, what is being produced by these tools, it might be doing it quicker than a human, but it's not doing it better than a human. It's not producing something that was beyond the concept of our own brains, and for us to keep pushing and keep going further and keep being creative and doing more and doing better, it's still on us.
Yeah. It's not psychic, is it? It's not kind of...
Not yet.
I was going to say something like, not yet.
Do you want to...
Yeah, I mean, AI is great. It's a great tool to use to start your journey. I mean, if you're looking for something as inspiration, it's fantastic. Plug in a few words, you get something, you can start on that journey. And there's no reason why a qualified artist, like you say, who has the fundamentals, can't utilize that and change it as it's going and utilize it as a true tool in what it is, just to help you with your journey and what you're trying to do for your job.
Yeah, absolutely. Perfect, thank you. Let's grab the mic, and the Unity T-shirt there was the last question. And we'll take your question, and then we'll wrap up, I think. So thank you. Yeah.
Hi, yeah. For Joe mainly, because you brought it up, I'd love to hear the other sorts as well. Obviously, with Stadia shutting down, rest in peace. What do you think about kind of the future of the front ends for cloud gaming? We've got the tech. What does the business model look like going forward? How do you get those players to see your games on things like TVs? Is it going to be continuing with things like Game Pass, where it hooks into that library, or GeForce Now, where it's pulling from Steam? Is it individual games on app stores? Is it something else?
That's a good question, Joe.
It's a very good question. And yeah, it's hard to predict for sure, but I think gaming has always had this advantage to be able to look at the other media that's kind of gone on that journey before it, music, movies, TV. I think it's a big risk, actually, to gaming. Of all the exciting things that cloud gaming brings, from a business point of view, it is risky, because how do you make money from it? If we're going to move to a, say, subscription-based service, which is what movies and TV seem to be doing, and music, there's always that fear of, well, how am I going to make money at this price? As I understand it, Netflix has never been profitable, Spotify's never been profitable, so what does that mean for us and the future? But at the same time, I feel it's inevitable that it will go on that same journey, that there will be a bunch of different people with their own subscription services, very much like Netflix and Disney Plus and HBO and all of those, getting the games on the different ones, and how people will make money from it, I'm not sure, but we might see, as we have seen with movies and music, a lot of investment in it. I think it is going to become big for a long time before it becomes problematic. So we'll have to watch and see what happens with movies and music, I think, and see how that goes. But yeah, I know people are nervous about the idea of things like only getting paid based on how many minutes people have played your game and stuff like that. And that may really fundamentally change the way we make games. There may be certain types of games that just aren't viable anymore, and that would be sad. But I've gone through that myself. I used to work on the Buzz games, and they just didn't mesh with internet, because we made, the music quiz, the movie quiz. As soon as PS3 came along and you could access things online, that became irrelevant. It just didn't fit anymore. You had to do it another way. So yeah, we will adapt and we will learn. But yeah, I suspect it's going towards a subscription-based service that everyone can kind of access a library of things.
Interesting. Thank you. Does anyone else want to leap in on cloud gaming? In that case, let's leave it there so you folks can get your lunch. Thank you very much for your questions. Round of applause, please, for Alex, Troy, Stanislaw.